I am going to hit the kick the shit intro. I am just a man in recovery doing my very best to share a positive message of love and hope to anyone out there struggling. My name's Danny Shannon. I spent 17 years in the pain, hurt and misery of active addiction, heroin, meth, crack, anything you could get your hands on. I am absolutely blessed to have found recovery on the 15th of September 2009. This is the Kick the Shit podcast. Each week, my guests and I will share our stories around the social and emotional impacts that addiction can have on both ourselves and our loved ones. Let's go! Let's hope that theme song doesn't play again. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to give a shout out to Koa Hani, who are sponsoring our podcast for season 2. Absolutely blessed. Koa Hani are helping you help yourself. They provide NDIS support and support coordination. Welcome, Lex and Renee. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Great to be with you.
Danny.
Absolute pleasure, guys. So if you're tuning in, I'd love to just welcome both Lex and Renee, and a little bit of backstory. In 2012, Renee was caught in a very serious motor vehicle accident. The way I believe is basically Lex turned around to come back to go on to basically save Renee's life. Addiction played a big part. I believe the doctors were feeding you lots of drugs over the years, Renee, that led you into addiction. So first of all, I'd love to just to you, Renee, would you mind giving us a bit of an intro on what you think today's show is going to be about?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously Lexi was the man that saved my life 11 years, going on 11 years now. Was on my way home from work and had a head-on with a semi-trailer, basically, and was dying and was checked by some other people, told that I was dead. Lex, travelling in front of me, turned around, came back, and was able to find a weak pulse in my arm, and he administered first aid until the ambulance and rescue squad arrived. So, and then after that,
so they thought you were dead, and then Lex came. Oh wow! I didn't realize that.
Okay. Renee, I'll just correct you a little bit, Renee, because you can't remember exactly what happened. But I was actually following behind you. So I was following behind you, and I saw you cross over on the sweeping curve, right in head on into the big B double. I saw the full impact, and it was happening around me, in front of me, beside me, and I managed to get around you while the accident's happening. And then I stopped and went back. But by the time I got back, everyone had decided that you were dead. And the fact is that you looked dead, and because everything was crushed upon you, you weren't breathing. So you weren't just unconscious, you were not breathing. And the longer you were left, the more brain damage, the more chance of you surviving was very low. And so I was able to clear your airways and actually get the pressure off your chest from all the car, click you back in the seat, and actually get you breathing for the first time. And you took this one breath, and then there wasn't a breath for a long time. But I had to clear your airways and get everything off your chest and face and head and hold you back in a position where you actually could take a breath.
Oh my God. Lex, far out, we've jumped right into the story. Lex, wow, how do you even know how to do that? Wait, before we jump any further, Lex, give us a bit of an intro. Who are you? How did can you just give us a bit of an intro to
Sure. I'm one of those strange creatures on planet Earth that's a little hard to describe. Yeah. I have a background in nursing. I pastor a church. I've had a background in animal husbandry and farming. You can hear chooks and birds in the background here. And I've had a lot of experience at saving animals. And I've brought a guy back from dead that had drowned and had no sign of life in the past. So I'm used to functioning in challenging situations. Most of my life I've worked with youth, addicted youth. I've had a lot of history in working with broken people. And so that day when everyone said, don't touch her, don't go near her, mate, she's dead, leave her alone, the voice of the crowd would have meant she died, and her son would have had no mother. And so sometimes in life, you can't listen to the crowd. You got to push through past the crowd and do what you know is right. And I was able to not only find a tiny pulse, but I was able to get her breathing again. And that was the critical thing. And I held her in that position for a long, long time while we relayed to the, everyone else what was going on with her.
Wow, man. I can't possibly imagine. Renz, that's so intense. How does it feel hearing that, Renee, right now?
Oh, it's definitely an emotional thing for me, but it also, Lex is able to tell this part of the story way better than me because I don't remember anything. I mean, I went to work on Friday and woke up 7 days later after being in a coma in hospital, and I had no idea. I would never have known what Lex did if he didn't go to the lengths that he did to find out who I was and to be able to come and visit me in hospital. Yeah.
That's another part to the story. Yeah. So just anyone joining us, I think everyone's, and welcome and thank you everyone who's here. So Renee, Renz has gone head on into a B double and Lex was trailing her
Yes.
from behind. And basically you were caught up right in amongst this full accident. And everyone had, when you'd pulled over, Lex, I believe. So what you're saying is everyone, well, were the paramedics there yet? No.
No. They didn't arrive for probably 20 minutes. See, what happened is the road that we're on, because of the accident, everyone behind me could not get past. Everyone coming towards me couldn't go anywhere. So I was the only vehicle that day that could have kept going because I got around. The accident happened sort of beside me, in front of me, around me. And so I had a stupid thought in my head. Do I need to stop? Do I need to go back? Do I need to get involved? And it's like, well, of course you do. But I had to answer that question in my head that day. Do I need to stop and do I need to go back? And I did. But I was the only one that could have kept going. Everyone else was forced. So it took a long time for the fireys and the cops to get there. And it was only what I did that kept Renee alive. And then even when they got there, they seemed to think that I was pretty comfortable in keeping her alive. So they left me in that position. So I stayed at the accident scene for about 2.5 hours. After they chopped her out of there.
You know, I don't normally jump in with the comments coming in because this is a podcast. We don't normally have the interaction, but a lot of people would just say, like, how blessed that you were there, Lex. Like, it really was a miracle. A man who's had experience in this space, you said you had past nursing experience and working with animals as well, and here you are, where people have pronounced Renee dead and you've decided, no, I know better than this. I'm just going to have a look, even after people had warned you to stay away. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Brings me up. I just want to dive into quickly, and we'll come back to this, the addiction side of this, Renee. So, just give us a bit of a rundown, Renee. Obviously, so you wake up in hospital a week later out of a coma, not knowing what has happened, and tell us about some of the injuries, please, Renee.
Okay, so to start with, they didn't know why I was paralyzed on my right side. They weren't able to give me an MRI due to all the broken bones. So I had a broken leg, a broken arm, broken ribs, a broken collarbone, a broken shoulder blade, a broken pelvis. I had 2 collapsed lungs, a lacerated liver, a lacerated spleen, a spinal cord injury, and my brain was bleeding. And that's just the main ones.
Shit. So scary.
Yeah, so when they actually put me in a coma in the car. So they gave me 2 blood transfusions while they were trying to, because I was, obviously stuck in the car. They gave me 2 blood transfusions and they put me in an induced coma. And then obviously, the next thing I know is they've medically brought me out of the coma, and I'm intubated. I can't speak, and my family's there, and I just knew something horrific had happened. And obviously my first thought was, where is my son? Like, where's Jack? And because I couldn't speak, obviously my family knew that that's what I was going to be my main thing, and they just kept saying, "Nay, it's okay, Jack's okay, you only hurt yourself." And they drip fed to me what had happened. They obviously can't say, "Oh, you've had this horrible accident, you've got all these things wrong with you." They just slowly told me, you know, what was happening. They said, "Oh, you're weak on the right side, but we don't know why." They couldn't do an MRI until I was out of ICU, and when they did, they discovered that I also had a spinal cord contusion in my neck, which caused my right side to be paralysed.
So, I mean, it's no wonder you obviously with all those injuries, which doesn't sound like you should have been alive. They would have started putting you on some heavy pain medication. Is that right?
Yeah, immediately. So obviously the morphine, I think it was the stuff, they were just rotating the medication. The big thing that was happening was I had always had anxiety, but had coped with it, I think, working. But then just, it was like every time I woke up, like every time I went to sleep in hospital, every time I woke up, it was like Groundhog Day. I was panicking, and I was panicking so bad. A few times I actually caused my lung to recollapse. So I ended up having to have surgery on it. And because I couldn't speak, they kept saying, what's wrong with her? And the best they could say was like, she's always had anxiety. So they put me on Xanax. And I can honestly say, but by the time I left hospital, I was addicted to all of it. They sent me home from hospital with a big bag of medication with a lot of repeats and no plan to ever get off anything. Fast forward.
You were in hospital for a long time. 8 months.
8 months, I think.
Yeah, so it's not like that was a big jump. It's not as if you were going home anytime soon. Like you were in hospital for basically the next 12 months after those injuries, and they sent you home with a big bag of drugs. Lex, I imagine in your work as a pastor, and you've probably had dealings with addiction and known people in addiction.
Yeah,
would that be right? Would that be accurate?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, with Renee, like when I first tried to get in contact with her after the accident, I kept going to the police station and asking if they could give me her name, and explained what I'd done, my role and all this stuff. And in the end, they just said to me, "Look, I'm sorry, I cannot tell you her name is Renee." And then they gave me her surname. They told me they can't tell me her surname. So I went to Liverpool Hospital, and she was still in, obviously, intensive care. She was connected up to every tube that man's ever made. And I went into the nurse's station and asked if I could see Renee. And suddenly this big bloke comes over to me and very protective. And he says, Who are you? You know, what do you want with my sister? And I told him the story, and he just burst into tears, and he grabbed me in a big bear hug and hugged me. And then he went and told Renee's mum and dad, who were in there with her, and then they brought me in. And Renee can't remember the first time we met, but she couldn't speak, but her eyes nodded, "Thank you." And then eventually, when she got to a ward, I went and met her for what she thinks is the first time, but it's actually our second time. And her son was waiting downstairs. And as I arrived, he came up to me, he says, "Are you Lex?" And I said, "What, did they tell you I was short and fat and bald, did they?" And he just, "Thank you for saving my mum." That's what he said to me. And then I came up to Renee and I said to Renee, "You were broken before this accident, but somehow I believe that through this, there's going to be healing and wholeness come to your life." And it's been a long process. While she's in the brain injury ward, I visited Renee most weeks. And I was about 40 minutes drive away in Sydney, and I'd come most weeks and visit her. And, she's been through so much, but getting out of hospital was just the beginning of the whole process. You know, she's had this life-controlling hold over her, and to be free is a real amazing thing for her. Amazing, yeah.
Sure. Two things I wanted to touch on. Renee, you mentioned your boy Jax a couple of times. He wasn't in the car, was he? He was.
No. I was by myself. I was actually on my way to pick him up from school. So he was waiting. He was waiting for Mum to come pick him up, and Mum didn't turn up. So, and yeah, obviously that I was laying in the car dying when that was happening. Yeah.
Yeah, just because I remember you said you woke up, and one of the things is you've come out of the coma is you're thinking about your boy. And I just want
where's my boy? Yeah,
of course.
I didn't remember.
You
All I
didn't know
knew
what
was
happened.
that I had no idea. Like, I just remember the last thing I remember was that I remembered taking a call on Friday for a shift on Monday. So I knew that I had got that call, and obviously I'd gone to, but I don't remember Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then the 5 days after. I mean, when I woke up, I actually, when they brought me out of the coma, I was saying, has someone called my boss? Yeah.
And the second thing I want to, thank you. I just wanted to make sure our listeners understood. And the second thing, Lex, so after that happened that night, that first night, you found Renee a week later. First of all, I'd love to give a shout out to the coppers for giving you her name in covertly like that. Thank goodness they did. What was happening between, like, what happened that night after what the paramedics took her and then you went home? Like, how did it play out?
It was interesting. The cop that was in charge of the accident scene, and also the ambulance, the person in charge of the ambulance side of things as well. Both of them rang me just to make sure I was going okay, which I was. I was actually very, very okay. But there was another lady that she used her phone, and so she was on the phone to 000, to the ambos, and I would be describing every breath that Renee took. I would be describing what a pulse was like. I'd be describing her condition while the ambulance is driving towards us, and this other lady is relaying all the information. As I say it, she then tells the ambos. Now, that lady was quite traumatized. Now, all I can remember that day was the car that she drove in. And somehow in the conversations in the 2.5 hours we were together, I found out that she lived, what suburb she lived in, and I remember her naming the street, and I can remember it started with H. So the next day, I actually got a map. I found a street that started with H, and I walked in it as a long street and in Harrington Park, and I knocked on every single door of that street, looking for this lady and describing her car, and eventually I found her to see if she was okay. And months later, when Renee came to our church for the first time, this lady and her husband and whole family also came to see Renee out of hospital and in the process of recovery.
Absolutely incredible. Like, so much of this story already just reminds me of how beautiful the world can be at times. Like, the beautiful people, Lex. Like, and I mean, just hear me out on this. Like, you are really such a guardian angel for not just Renee, for her son Jax, also for that lady.
Yes.
Right? And obviously, you know, the work that you've done and being a pastor. Like, it's just mate, it just warms my heart. It's so beautiful to hear this stuff.
Good, Danny.
Yeah,
see, Danny, we all need someone. Danny, we all need someone that will barrack for us. We can't do life on our own. We like, healing comes in community. We need others. We need other people to strengthen us, encourage us, and support us. We do.
Yeah, we do. Well, all right, mate. What a beautiful start to the show. That's just so incredible.
I actually, you know, when I had to give your number before, Danny, when I gave your number to Lex. This is actually the Bible that Lex gave me. The first Bible that I've ever owned. He gave this to me. It's dated the 23rd of the 5th, 2012. So my accident was on the accident was on the 30th of April, 2012. So this is the Bible that Lex wrote, gave me, and he says, "Dear Renee, to play a role in saving your life physically has been a great privilege. To then see the start of your new life spiritually, that is very special. Love, Lex." And it's got his phone number there. And as you know, he's still got the same phone number.
Yeah.
Yes.
Renee, I want absolutely beautiful. Renee, what about your history before? Did you have a history of addiction before this incident? That's what I want to know next.
No, not like I obviously dabbled in things when I was younger, but heavy addiction in my family. My dad has been in and out of jail my whole life. My brother's currently back incarcerated. He did 6 years, got out, back on drugs, and he's now back in again. So definitely like a lot of addiction, a lot of trauma and jail and yeah, friends with addiction definitely around my life. And I honestly didn't really think I had a problem. I think we've had this discussion before because the doctors gave me the tablets,
Yeah.
they were like, here, take them. So, but obviously later on I started recognizing, counting pills, doctor shopping. One of the doctors I actually was seeing got fired for over prescribing. I thought he was the greatest because he just gave me whatever I wanted, 3 different types of benzos, opiates, codeine, pain patches. And then I also started buying them as well. So I would, buy them off people on the street. I was, constantly. So it took me a long time and a good GP actually. I tried rehab. 8 days, I was back out and just using another doctor to get back the tablets I wanted. I actually just ended up getting a really, really good GP who has slowly transformed. We've had a talk about this, and I know you definitely. We all know sobriety looks different for everybody, and for me, I'm using medical cannabis. So people might say I'm not sober, but trust me when I tell you that it has changed my life. It is the best thing. I'm with it. I'm actually now having to deal with the last 10 years that I numbed up with opiates and benzos. So I'm going through some trauma counselling now. I've been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So now a lot of this stuff that I've obviously blocked out for the last 10 years with pills, having to deal with now. So, and yeah.
Hey, Renee, thank you for bringing that up. And I definitely would like to touch on this. My understanding of recovery, I believe recovery equals our level of happiness, at the end of the day. Like in the work I do, especially in this space, and especially the last few years, I've discovered, like I come from a total abstinence background in addiction, and I know you know that, but one thing I've discovered over the last couple of years, especially having the privilege of connecting with people all over the world, is that recovery has so many different faces. And I believe, like, from what you just described right then is, like for you, who is anyone to say what equals recovery? And I love the idea that, if your level of happiness is what recovery is today, but Renee, on that note, let's just celebrate your 3 years off the opiates and 9 months off Xanax at the moment. Is that right? Yeah, congrats. So that's a huge achievement. How long have you been prescribed? I don't even know much about this, but the medicinal, is it marijuana? Is it like you smoke it or what?
So actually, like I've got here, this is the vaporizer. So I know I vape it.
Yeah, right.
Because I didn't enjoy smoking it because the amount they want you to smoke as well. But no, I started off on the oil. So the CBD THC oil, which you just microdose, you just, squirt it in your mouth and swallow it. So I started off on that. And guys, I got on this medication when now all doctors can prescribe it. But 3 years ago, it was only really prescribed for palliative care and MS. It was very hard for people to get it. Also very hard to get my insurance company to pay for it. They were happy to pay for my opiates and benzos, whatever. But when I tried to switch over to this, they said, no, we're not paying for it. You need to go back on opiates. And I thought that was mad. But I appealed it. And now, fast forward 3 years, it's available to everybody. All doctors can prescribe it. The insurance company are happy to pay for it. They bought my vape. But I had to do the hard yards. I had to do it back when they didn't want to prescribe it. People still, I always try and correct people when they talk about it as well. And they say dope, marijuana, weed. And I say, listen, like I understand when people use it incorrectly, that it can be an issue for certain people, like any prescription medication or any street drug. Some people, it turns people, it's not for everybody, but it's been the best thing for me. So, I had to do.
Renee, what does it do?
Pain, it's like usually prescribed for chronic pain. So pain that is usually it's opiate resistant pain anyway. So they give you opiates and I'm still in pain. I was basically just taking the opiates so that I didn't withdraw in the end. And the benzos, it becomes another problem. It stops helping you with what you've got and adds to it by, you're just basically taking it so you're not sick. And I still had the worst anxiety, the worst pain. And I had to learn how to live with the pain and the trauma that I've been through in a healthy way. Like, I'm going to have this for the rest of my life. So, taking opiates was just, I was miserable. I was existing. I don't even remember most of the last of the 10 years because of the Xanax. So yeah, it is available for everyone. And I always try and educate people on it. A lot of people ask me online about it all the time. How do they get on it? What they just want to know so much about it. So I always try and really educate people on not calling. You need to call it cannabis. It is medical cannabis. Stop calling it dope. Stop calling it weed, especially when using it medically. I think we need to change people's mind about that. And like I said, when people are using it as recreational and it's a problem for them, like any drug or substance, sometimes that thing is not the right thing for that person, but for me it saved my life.
Sure. Renee, may I ask, with all the opiates that they put you on, I imagine we're talking like Endo and Oxycontin. What other ones were they giving you for pain?
So I would get that. They would give me Northspan pain patches, which is it's another opiate. They'd give me codeine. Yep. And then it was the 3 benzos I was on. The benzos were actually the thing that really got a grip on me. We know I've only just been off them for 9 months because I found that very, very hard. The withdrawals were awful.
The Xanax,
yeah, Xanax.
What
sorry, and they're actually. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, go. Go.
I was going to say that benzos and alcohol are actually the most dangerous substances to come off. So I had seizures. So I had a couple of grand mal seizures, some blackout seizures. I've now got a really bad startle reflex from having seizures. So loud noises and things really, get me going. And this is all damage that I've done from taking these medications. I was also on Lyrica and gabapentin, if people are familiar with those. That's an antipsychotic, anti-seizure medication that they use to treat, opiate-resistant pain, like nerve pain and things like that. But it actually, all of those pills together, you can imagine, I didn't even actually know what was doing what to me until I was able to stop taking all of it. I don't take any of it anymore. I just use the medical cannabis guys and some aspirin and Nexium for my stomach.
Yeah, did you ever, when they started taking you off the opiates, did you ever abuse another, street drugs? Well, you said you bought that stuff on the side as well. And look, the reason I'm touching on this is because this is how a lot of people do become addicted, don't they? From injuries, from pain injuries.
Yep. And they get cut off.
They get cut off, and then they buy and what about you? Did you have any history with that?
No, not with the opiates. I feel like I was okay with what they prescribed me. I really feel like, when they say you've got your poison, for me, it was the benzos. And I think it's because of when if anyone who's got anxiety, most people have had a Valium before. When you've got, severe anxiety and you've got a little magic pill there that relaxes you and makes you feel okay, it's heaven. And it's so dangerous to prescribe. It's never meant to be prescribed long-term, especially 10 years. It's supposed to be a short-term thing. But I think I was put in the too hard basket by a lot of doctors. They either just gave me the script to get rid of me, or they'd say, oh, I'm not dealing with you. And so I'd just go to somebody else until I got a good doctor that was slowly let me feel like I could tell him the truth and never, ever made me feel like, I don't know I can't explain to you how grateful I am to him, but I definitely with the benzos, that was very, very hard for me. And yeah, I mean, thank God once I've 9 months ago when I actually stopped, I have not touched one. I haven't tried to. I'm very aware of the fact that it's quite triggering for me. So I got triggered yesterday. Someone on TikTok, I had a multi-guest box and I was literally talking about this, and he had his camera on and he started shaking, he had his prescription pills and he started shaking the bottle on the screen, and I actually had to mute myself for a second and I got quite upset, and one of my moderators said, Renz, reset, get off. And I ended up getting on the phone and having a chat to her because that actually triggered me. I thought, why would you do that? Like, it also had his name on the pill bottle, which is, you're not supposed to display that.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously people talking about it can trigger me.
You know, what a coincidence, Renee. I actually logged in. I actually heard that. I seen it go down with you. I heard your response.
Oh,
and good on you. Yeah, I did. I just so happened to be there. And good on you for putting in your boundaries and protecting yourself. And that was your platform too. Lex.
Yep.
So hang on. So that happened 11 years ago, is it? Hang on. So 23, 11 years ago now. So Lex, you've seen Renee go through all of this, I guess, and you two, from what I understand, have the most beautiful relationship. How has it been, and how do you feel? Yeah, the journey has been with Renee. Getting stuck on meds. Like, could you see her going down that path and getting trapped on that medication? Yeah, please talk to me about that.
Like Renee, I know that Renee was hurt and broken before the accident. Like, she's been through a lot of trauma. Her family of origin, there's some beautiful people in her family, but there's been a lot of pain before the accident. And so the accident multiplied the complexity of the issues she was facing. Like, if you go from a normal capacity to move and walk and function, and suddenly when you come out of hospital, you can hardly walk. You need someone to help you stand up and sit up, and you need a carer. When you're going through all that messes with you. And see, like, the human heart longs to be loved, to be valued just for who you are, and have a meaning and purpose in life. And Renee lost her meaning and purpose, and her world got very small, and pain got very big. And I saw the meltdown. There were times when Renee would just shut down on social media. She'd just go absent. You always knew when Renee was having a bad time. She'd just go very quiet on social media. But Renee also used social media to lash out, and it was just, her life's been a struggle for her. And so I've actually shifted away from Sydney about 4 years ago. So I haven't physically had a chat with Renee face to face, but we've kept in contact. And like, there's a bond between us that goes very deep, and it's like we've been through stuff together. And I may never have walked exactly where she's walked, but I can relate to her pain and her brokenness, because in my world, I've seen a lot of brokenness and I've seen a lot of recovery. I've seen people set free. And, I guess I come from a perspective that we didn't make us, so we can't fix us. And if God really did make us, then he has a way to bring healing and wholeness to our life. And it's not just one day when you die and you get to heaven and it's all great. No, there has to be able to be healing and wholeness now. So in my world now, I spend a lot of time trying to help people come through to recovery and wholeness. And so to see Renee free from this thing that's had a hold of her is really very exciting. It's very encouraging for her. It's put normality back into her. And as she just said before, what she's hidden from through the drugs and medication, now she is actually able to face. But that in itself is a bit scary, because when you avoid reality, it's very hard to enter back into that.
And now you're giving back to Renee, like, even just on your live streaming, you're able to sort of share your message, come on here on the podcast and share your message. And Lex, I'm very blessed to be on a similar journey, to watch a lot of those people transition through that stuff too. And we all are, I guess, It's a beautiful thing. And for us to come together today and to be able to document that story, and actually, like, this story has been it's so heartwarming, and I know so many people are going to love listening to that. One of the things you reminded me of, Renee, when you talk, well, actually, Lex, you reminded me about Renee, was there was times there where you were being hoisted out of the bed, Renee, like you couldn't eat, like because Lex said you couldn't walk when you got out. And I remember you on a previous interview we did, you literally had pins sticking out of your body. They used to have to hoist you out of bed with a hoist to what? Do you remember some of that stuff?
For 4 months I was non-weight bearing on my left leg because I absolutely, like, guys, when I didn't break my leg, I absolutely shattered it. They were going to amputate it. So when they did fix it, I had to wear, for it to heal, it took 4 months. So I was non-weight bear. Also with the lung that kept collapsing was the reason I couldn't leave hospital. I probably should have been in hospital for about 12 months, but I actually, from about, I'm going to say from the time I woke up, I was like, I want to go, let me out of here. I want to go home. And people were looking at me like, you're not going anywhere. But until I accepted like that I couldn't. But the second they fixed my leg, I told them I'm going home. So I went back to the hospital every single day to do my physio because I wanted to be home with my son. My family, like Jack ended up staying with my brother. And he was fine there, but I just felt like desperately that I needed to get back to my son and be there. But once I got home, and I had realized, like, wow, this is my life now. I need help round the clock to start with. Then I had 24-hour care. And my son's, he was just, hitting 13, the hormones starting to hit. And he'd been through so much, getting bullied at school before I had this accident. So his little world was it was really tough for the first few years, like having to face the fact that I'm never going to be able to work again. I've worked like a mofo to walk, like, for 2 years I was in a wheelchair, Danny. So I absolutely 2 years, and they told me I wasn't going to walk. I walked out of hospital like with a walking frame and a pelican belt, but I actually, that was my thing. I was like, they told me, Renee, you need to get in the wheelchair so we can push you down to physio. I refused to get. They had to get a social worker to come and say, okay, you're going to walk. Because I was like, I'm going to walk. And they're like, Renee, you need to get in the wheelchair so we can take you down to physio so you can start to do this. So they had to literally convince me, because I thought if I got in that chair, I'm never going to get out of it. Yeah. So I was very determined from the second I opened my eyes. So that's one thing I do have, is determination.
There's a lot of trauma that Renee has been through, and when she was in the hospital, I saw them lifting her one day and her screaming and the pain she was in, which they ignored. And there was one nurse that had actually did not treat her well, and it became a great trauma to her in there. There was other beautiful nurses, but this one person caused a lot of trauma and pain. And Renee lost so much body mass, so much body weight, like she was just skin and bone. And I can still remember when they had to put drain tubes into her chest to try and get the lung inflated again. And like, there's a book written by a brilliant doctor and psychologist called The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks about trauma and how it affects the body, and how our little amygdala, which is like the smoke detector in our brain, how it goes off without we even having a single thought. And so Renee was traumatized, not just by the accident, but by the recovery. Sure, and it's been trauma upon trauma. And the body keeps a score. It affects the wiring of our brain. It affects that smoke detector so that we react. We don't even know why we're reacting. Before we've had a logical thought, we already are in flight mode. We're out of there. We just don't feel safe. We don't even know why. And Renee went through a lot of trauma. And so to see her now starting to put her life back together again is very encouraging, very encouraging.
Yeah. So anyone out there, hold on, Renee. All right, guys, this is absolutely beautiful. We're coming towards the end. We will take some questions. I've seen there's been a lot of comments coming through. I'd love to go through some of those comments. But Renee and Lex, is there any before we go to the questions, Renee, is there any like words of wisdom? I asked everyone this that you'd like to share, or anything you'd like to share with our viewers about the journey you've been on and where you are today. Can you think of something you'd like to share with the viewers?
I just am just really grateful to be where I am now, and I just encourage anyone who's stuck in addiction or stuck in trauma that there is a way out, guys. Like, trust me, I've been to hell and back more than once, and I'm 44 years of age now, and I'm just starting to deal with some of these traumas and live my life I'm not existing anymore. I want to live. I've been existing for decades. So I would just encourage anyone who's going, don't give up.
Thank you. Yeah, you are such a strong, incredible woman, Renee. Something like just remind me of then. It kind of remind me. I've heard of the trauma of a burns victim, basically, like that healing. So there wasn't just the accident. There's the recovery was a painful, long process, and I guess it would be something similar to that. I can't. You're a soldier, Renee. Thank you for sharing. Lex, would you like to share anything with the viewers before we take some questions?
I guess we're all broken in some way. We all need some healing, some wholeness in our life. It's a sliding scale, if you like. But so for Renee, when she came out of hospital, her son Jack was like her support pillar. She relied on him, and he relied on her because this is his only parent. If Renee had died, Jack would have not had any parent on earth, right? And so there was a dependence upon each other that was healthy, but it was also not healthy sometimes. And so the need for people outside of your immediate family that can give support. And so we had the privilege of being able to do that. And I used to pick up Renee most weeks. We'd get her in a car and bring her along to our church that we'd started there. And having a large group of people that can support you is part of the whole healing process.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, like just one of the things that shows your strength is that moment when Lex felt for your pulse, where everybody else had said you were dead, and Lex believed that maybe there was a chance, and you took that breath, and Lex felt that weak pulse. Like, wow, that's the miracle here, isn't it? And
Yes.
and you today, Renee. Well, all right, I'm going to highlight some questions on screen. If anyone has some questions for Renee or Lex, please feel free to start dropping them in. I'll try and go back through and respond to some of the questions. If we don't, that's absolutely fine too. Before we go to that, I'd just like to give another big shout out to Koahani for sponsoring our podcast. Koahani are helping you help yourself. They provide NDIS support and coordination. Thank you so much, Koahani. Guys, so guys, what I can do right now is I can go through. I don't know if you guys can see the comments. You probably can't. I'm going to go back and highlight. First of all,
if we click on the comments, it takes you out of the screen. Yeah. So yeah,
I'll put them up on screen. Alison, thank you so much for being here. Kelly says, Lex, you're a beautiful man. Absolutely, Kelly. Thank you for saving this beautiful woman. I don't know if you know any of these people. Jasmine,
I do. They're my friends.
Rachel, you were the person needed, Lex. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Donna saying, hey, Danny, Lex, Renee, good to be joining here from Gladesville, Georgia in the USA. Welcome, Donna. Thank you so much for being here. Donna Warwick, hey, good morning. Donna, thank you for being here. There's so many comments, guys. Bear with me for a moment. Let me see if we can find. God bless you, Rex. Yeah, lots of love for Rex, of course. Courtney, does this page help you get sober? Thank you, Courtney. Hope so. We just share our messages of love and support with anyone struggling with addiction. As you've heard today, Renee's got an incredible story of recovery. Tough chick, Renee. God bless. Richard. Kyle says, I've been dead about 5 times, and if it weren't for people around me, I'd be dead now. Why did they bring me back to this shitty world? Oh, bless you, Kyle. And I've had the same experience, Kyle. Like, if it wasn't for people around me, I wouldn't be here now either. I cope with drink and smoke, just wondering, not addicted per se. Thanks, Courtney. All right, guys, there's so many questions. Andrew, thank you so much. I'm doing well, thank you. All right, guys, if there's any questions, I'll skip to the end now. Donna just says that, Lex, you are an amazing man, an absolute miracle. Renee, sending you so much love and prayer to you and your son.
Thank you.
Nick, thank you, Nick. Awesome to all of us. Sending love to Renz from Manda. Jasmine Murray. Jasmine sending love also.
Love you, Jazz.
And Karen Hubbard. Hey, Karen. Healing and wholesome. Beautiful words. All right, guys, excuse me if I've missed any of the comments. It is kind of hard to I love and hope. What's this from? I love the hope, support, generous and honesty. Much gratitude. Thank you, Alison. And hey, Casey Humphreys, we appreciate you, guys. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for season 2, episode 2 of Kick the Ship podcast. Renee and Lex, thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing the most beautiful, amazing story. It just gives me so much hope in humanity, kind of,
Well,
just really warms my spirit.
Danny, I just let people know that we live stream every week from our church called Red Gum, and on tomorrow I'm actually interviewing a lady who had an alcohol addiction for a long time, nearly ended up in prison for a long time over embezzling money from the business she worked for. And her story of recovery and wholeness is inspiring. So I'm going to be doing that tomorrow, Red Gum Church. If anyone wants to, 10 o'clock, it's live stream, but it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, Red Gum Church, and we live stream every week. And if we can be some encouragement, support, if someone wants to reach out to me, Danny, you got my phone number there. I'm not a counsellor, I'm not a professional, but I care about people, and I've seen a lot of people come through to be healed and whole. So yeah, just throw that in.
Yeah, absolutely, Lex. Thank you so much for reminding me. Yeah, bless you, everyone. Red Gum Church, look it up. So where do they find you on what platform?
Just on YouTube. Red Gum Church, or on Facebook.
You said that, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't. Yeah. Oh, good man. And thank you, Katie. I was hoping you would be there dropping comments. And anything else? Renz, what about you? Do you want to let people know where they can contact you, or what do you do? Any streaming stuff? I heard you mention TikTok earlier.
Yeah, just a little bit of TikTok here and there. Yeah, guys, so Little Miss Tattooed on TikTok. You'll see me most days live streaming. Most of my content centers around trauma, recovery, addiction, that type of thing. So if anyone wants to follow me, if anyone wants to know anything about my story, I'm an open book. And yeah, I'm happy to help anyone with if I can give them any help or encouragement with my story and what I've been through. Just hit me up, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll find Lex on YouTube. You'll find Renee on TikTok under Lil Miss Tattooed. What you can do, Renz, guys, if you want to drop your comments on this feed, Renz might be able to take a look back on. Are you on Facebook, Renz? Do you see?
Yeah.
On Facebook?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
you'll
I
be
don't
able to
use
go
it much
through
anymore, but yeah.
You'll be able to go through and see all these comments, Renz, and you can reply to anyone. And same goes to you, Lex. And guys, yeah, thank you once again, everyone. Stay in the studio, guys. I'm going to end the broadcast right now. Bye.